welcome to another edition of the Terry Collins Show, presented by Tunnel to Towers, supporting America's greatest heroes. Donate just $11 per month by going to T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org. I'm John Arezzi, and joining me is the former skipper of the New York Mets, analyst for SNY's Baseball Night in New York, and a true baseball lifer, Mr. Terry Collins. Terry, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, John. Good to be back on the air and looking forward to a good show today.
Absolutely. Another week's in the books. The season's flying by, and we have another episode today with another pretty cool guest.
Yeah, can't wait. John Gibbons, the Mets bench coach and former Toronto Blue Jays manager, and one of my former minor league players, who I've been friends with for years. Loved to have him on my team. Always followed his career intently, and one of the real fun-loving guys in the game. I'm looking forward to having him on.
Yeah, I'm especially looking forward to this one today as well. It reunites me with my old roomie from the 1981 Shelby Mets, my first baseball podcast partner as well. So it should be a really cool talking with TC today. But let's get right into the leadoff. The Mets just returned from a grueling 10-game road trip, 4 cities, 3 time zones. And the Mets, to me, looked kind of fatigued as they ended the trip going 4-6. They got swept by the Mariners this weekend, scoring just 1 run in those 3 games. Terry, how does a road trip the Mets just concluded, how does that wear down a team, and how do you bounce back up from that?
Well, it is grueling, and that's especially at this time of year when you have to make those coast-to-coast trips because they're hard. But when you fly into a town, they went to, Anaheim, and then they had to fly back to St. Louis, and it's the rest time that's involved. These guys, then I know they get on, they've got their, charter jet, and they get on it and they can relax. But, they're still young guys. They're still, the adrenaline hasn't gone away yet from the game itself. So it's not like they can just lay down and get 8 hours of sleep. So that changing that many time zones can be tough on you, especially on your body. But that is part of baseball, and that's why, when you're on those coasts, and I happen to manage on each coast. I managed in LA for a while. I managed, of course, a long time in New York. And those coast-to-coast trips can beat you up a little bit. But you know what? It's baseball, and you got to be able to bounce back from it. Yesterday they had a day off. Hopefully guys got some rest, got some nutrition, and get ready to go tonight.
And some home cooking because they're back home for a really big homestand, 9 games coming up. But as you always say, Terry, no one's going to feel sorry for you. So you got to tough it up. As we tape, the Mets are neck and neck with the Atlanta Braves for that 3rd wild card spot. Arizona and San Diego have been playing amazing baseball, winning almost every day. They're now 4 games up on the Mets and the Braves. St. Louis and San Francisco are breathing down the necks of New York, and the Reds, Pirates, and even the Cubs are still in the hunt too. Terry, this wild card race is incredible, especially with the new rules that took place with the extra wild card team. Have you ever seen a race this close with so many teams bunched up like this in August?
I have not, and that's what that extra wild card game provides, and I think it's great for baseball. And I know, yes, and believe me, and I'm a traditionalist, but I spent so many years in the minor leagues where you had half of seasons where you'd play 70 games in the first half and then start fresh in the second half for 70 more games, and it kept the towns interested. So here you have all these great big league cities where there's a lot of towns that are still excited about their team, big possible playoff spot. And we saw last year what happened when the Diamondbacks got in as a wild card team. They got to the World Series. So getting in is what it's all about. So I think it's very cool. I think it's big. Those last 2 months when you go to the ballpark and each and every night those games mean something, that's an exciting time for baseball.
Yeah, and the Mets have a very challenging rest of the month, but they're home for 9 games this week, 3 with the A's, 3 with the Marlins, 3 with Baltimore. The A's have been playing some good baseball over the last month. The Orioles are neck and neck with the Yankees in the AL East, battling for first place. So it's not going to get any easier for the Mets. It is a big week. What would you consider kind of a success this week, this 9-game homestand coming up? How many wins do the Mets need to be comfortable and stay right in there? How many games do you think they need to win this week?
Well, again, John, I don't know if you can ever put a number of games on. The one thing you don't want to do is lose ground. So yeah, and when you talked about this 9 game homestand, I think it's big because you're playing two teams that you should beat. I mean, if you play your kind of game, the A's, yeah, they've been playing better, but they're not in any division race, not in any wild card race. The same with the Marlins. They sold off half their club here this year. So those are two teams that you got to. So when you look up at the end of this 9 games, but Baltimore, that's going to be a tough one. Then you go on an absolute grueling road trip. So
Yes.
all you want to do when you get through these next 9 games is hope you pick up a game, but don't lose a game. And so then when you get into that grueling road trip, that's where a lot of things are going to happen.
Yeah, and it looks like that road trip at the end of the month. I mean, you're playing Arizona, you're playing San Diego, and then you finish up with the White Sox, who may actually beat the Mets' all-time losing record this year, the way they're going. But yeah, it's a grueling schedule, and that could tell the tale of the season when you're playing the Diamondbacks and the Padres. So we all look forward to seeing what's going to happen with this team by the end of the month. But it is, as you said, very, very exciting. Terry, as you know, I was in New York last week meeting with Mariano Rivera for a future Tunnel to Towers videotaping. And last Tuesday, New York Yankee great Paul O'Neill was so generous with his time, inviting us to White Plains to shoot his PSA with the T2T team. He shared some amazing 9/11 stories. He was part of that Yankee team in 2001. Do you know either Rivera or O'Neill?
I know both. As a matter of fact, I will tell you, Paul O'Neill, as you know, was not just a great Yankee. He was a great Cincinnati Reds, too. He was a very, very good player. And I will tell you, if there was one guy, John, that I never wanted to face in the 9th inning with the game on the line, it was Paul O'Neill. This guy got big hit after big hit. I don't care who was on the mound, lefty, righty. Paul O'Neill, when it was crunch time, got big hits. No, when you're on the other side of the field, he was one of those guys, complained to the umpires endlessly. Like nothing. If he took a pitch, it wasn't a strike. They might have called it a strike. But I will tell you one thing: he was a great teammate and a tough, tough opponent. And obviously, Mariano is one of the classiest human beings on the face of the earth. And nobody wanted to face him. And I'll tell you, when you scored a run off Mariano Rivera, that made the road trip. So
Yeah.
those were two good guys you could deal with.
Yeah, he was impossible. What a reliever he was. What a career he's had. And what a gracious individual he is as well. I was he has two car dealerships up in the New York area, and one was on Long Island. That's where I met him. And it was amazing to see him, signing autographs for the people that were there. And there were Long Island policemen that were there. There was like 10 of them there that he took pictures with. So just to spend a few minutes with him and discuss T2T, Tunnel to Towers. What a gracious individual, and they are so happy that he's going to be part of, I think, their first Hispanic language PSA. So we'll be putting that together the first part of September. But we also learned this week that the first responder hockey teams from across the New York area will be competing for the Heroes Cup at the Menon Arena in Morristown, New Jersey. This is a must-see event. It's going to take place Saturday, September 14th, and proceeds will benefit Tunnel to Towers. And then, of course, that big smart home dedication Wednesday, August 14th is coming up in Utah for Air Force Technical Sergeant Jesse Clark. And Jesse was left paralyzed by a brain tumor linked to the chemical explosion during the Gulf War. TC, since its inception, it's amazing to know that Tunnel to Towers Foundation has now provided 1,200 mortgage-free homes to Gold Star and falling first responder families with young children. And Terry, I have to tell you that we talk about these PSAs a lot. And today, right here on the Terry Collins Show, a new PSA is going to debut, and it features one Terry Collins. So let's go to that right now.
Hi, I'm Terry Collins, former manager of the New York Mets. Tunnel to Towers Foundation gives the city of New York something they can actually hold on to that's really a part of them. You know, my dad was a vet, and if you've not been in the service, you have no idea what it means to sacrifice everything for a group. Those are the real heroes in the world. Let's go Mets, and let's help the Tunnel to Towers Foundation.
Go to t2t.org for more information about how your donation can make a difference.
I remember when we shot this with you down in Florida back in March, it was also the first time we met face to face. So, how does it feel to see your spot for the first time?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it's, John, I will tell you, because I've done some things with them since we did that PSA. My respect for them has grown enormously. I've experienced it firsthand. I've talked to people who have benefited from T to T, their help at some of the vets, some of the first responders. It is truly, truly one of the class foundations in the world.
Yeah, it's an honor to work with them and have them associated with this show for sure. Terry, we're going to check out This Week in Mets history, and we only have one thing to reminisce with you about. On August the 12th, 2015, Yoenis Cespedes hits his first home run as a New York Met. Cespedes wore a bright yellow arm sleeve that matched the color of a parakeet that kind of escaped at Citi Field that night. The parakeet became affectionately known as the Rally Parakeet among the Mets faithful. So why don't we reminisce and take a look at that clip right now.
The Rally Parakeet once tonight when they scored twice in the fourth. Cespedes drives one deep right center field, headed back toward the wall. It's out of here. Yoenis Cespedes with his first home run as a New York Met. The Rally Parakeet lives. 3-0 New York.
There you go. Little chin music. And a home run. Number 19 on the year for him here.
His first in the National League.
Breaking ball, not a bad one. Stayed in. That's where he'd like to see him go.
That was kind of crazy, Terry. I mean, that because they were focusing on that bird like the whole game. This bird was flying around, it was landing here, and Cespedes has the same color as this bird. I mean, that's one of the craziest things that I've ever seen. What was your
And I'll tell
take
you, it
on
was
that?
great. Guys, somebody got a picture of it, and I think I don't know how many guys put it in their locker, and of course Cess, if you go just look at the replay, it'll tell you how dynamic he was. That pitch was not a very good pitch to hit out of the ballpark. I mean, it just tells you how powerful he was. So, but it was cool, and you know what? Even to this day, when I see him, he may show up with that yellow arm guard on when we go play golf. So, that was a cool night. And I tell you what an exciting time that was.
Yeah, that was a magical moment and a magical season for sure. Well, Terry, you can check out Mets history. We all can anytime on social media by going to @NYM on both X and Instagram. And Terry, without any further ado, it's time to get to our Talkin' with TC special guest. Our special guest today on Talkin' with TC was a former first-round draft pick of the Mets back in 1980, their third selection behind second-round pick Billy Beane, or actually in the first round, but the second selection for the Mets, Billy Beane, and the number one pick that year, Darryl Strawberry, not bad company for our guest to be around. In 1980, he is a member of the 1986 World Championship Mets, a longtime manager in their minor league system, who went on twice to manage the Toronto Blue Jays, where he remains a cult hero in the country of Canada. He was hired by the Mets to come back to the organization this season and serves as the bench coach for Carlos Mendoza. His 2023 memoir, Gibby, Tales of a Baseball Lifer, documented his long career in the game. He's my former roommate, and from 2022 to 2023, our host. I had the honor of co-hosting the Gibby Show podcast with him. It's a pleasure to bring on to Talkin' with TC, Gibby, Mr. John Gibbons. Welcome to Talkin' with TC, Mr. John Gibbons.
Hey, well, it's about time you guys had me on here for crying out loud. The season's almost over.
Yeah.
But, hey, it's good to see everybody. I go way back with TC. I don't know if everybody knows that. He was my manager in 1988, Albuquerque Dukes. I got traded in spring training for Craig Shipley. And I went over there, and it was a pleasure to get to know him. I gotta say this: TC was the hardest working guy I ever played for in baseball. And the guy, nobody cared more about doing things right. And I'm sure he'll mention some things today in our show, but it was an honor and pleasure. You know, I didn't play real well for him. It was a stop along the way for me, but I got a lot of great memories. We had a good team.
John, nice to have you on. Thanks for doing this. I know you're coming off a long road trip. You're probably exhausted, so taking the time out is certainly, we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, T, you know what? The thing about being exhausted, I tell people this all the time. The bench coach job is a job to have, man. You know, it's like, you know, when the game's over, you got to go in there and talk to the media, especially in a town like this. The bench coach got, you know, he goes home and especially you get a little older and you have this job, you got other people around there doing all of the dirty work that those guys used to do. And it's been a pretty good gig. I've enjoyed it, you know, and you know, we got a team that's in this thing. It's going to be an interesting final month and a half.
So, John, you know, obviously you managed a long time. You've had bench coaches yourself, probably different guys. So how's it been being the bench coach for a first-year manager?
You know, T, it's funny when he first got the job, I didn't know Carlos, and the thought crossed my mind, well, maybe they'll hire a guy that's been around a while, right? Because I was looking to get back into the game. And, you know, sure enough, there was just a passing thought, right? And then a couple guys connected me with him, and I ended up getting this job here. And I thought, you know what, if anything I can give him, I've been through a lot, you know, in this game. I've seen a lot, and I'll give him some advice if he wants it. You know, you know how it is. It's a feeling out process, you know, because the guys that get hired to manage in the game, I mean, you know, they know what's going on, right? And they don't always need a lot of advice or a lot of input, because sometimes you can you can give them too much, right? Or you can try to be overbearing. So I just said, I'll sit back and wait and see what Carlos wants out of me. And if he asks me some questions during the game, this or that, or keep an eye on some things, I'll do it. And it's worked out tremendously. You know, he's number one. He's a great dude, you know, good man. He's a good baseball guy. And, you know, he's given me a lot of respect, you know, for my length of time in the game. And, you know, he asks me bits and pieces every now and then, and I give him my opinion, you know, but, you know, he runs the game, and I think he's done a very good job. He really has, and he's made it easy. And so, you know, I go back, I prepare like the game like I would if I was managing, and if something comes up and he asks me on the spot, I tell him what I think I would do. And then, you know, of course, he makes his own decision.
You know, John, obviously, you know, from transfer when you first started managing in the minor leagues, and then you got to the big leagues as a manager, you know, the game has really evolved. Some of the new rules, some of the, you know, the way the game is being played today. Has it been tough, you know, from the kind, because, you know, yeah, you did play for me, and I will tell you, I loved it. I loved every second having you on the club. But has it been tough? Has it been a tough change to see the way the game has evolved today?
Yeah, it is. You know, it's completely different. You know, you mentioned the rules, right? You know, the only rule I really like is the pitch clock, right? And even at first, I thought I wasn't a big fan of it when I was on the outside looking in, because I knew I had pitchers in the past that had trouble when they worked too fast, right? Even though I thought it would benefit from them, and they needed to take their time. And I thought, well, why punish a guy that this makes him successful, right? But it does pick up the pace of the game, and I think that's worked fine. As far as, you know, some of the rule changes, I don't like, you know, being an ex-manager like you, I don't like the 3-batter minimum. I think that kind of hamstrings you a little bit as far as strategy-wise. You know, I never liked to play at the home plate and the sliding rule at second, because, you know, those are big parts of the game, the aggressive parts of the game that people love, you know, and I think we got a little bit soft as an industry. So, you know, and now analytics, you know, the big part, you know, is really big, right? And I've had to adjust to that and learn some new things. I still can't figure out all the terminology they use, you know. But you know what? It's just the most important thing of all. It goes back to the basics. The teams that pitch better, they hit better, they field, they do all the fundamental things. Those are the teams that are going to come out on top. You know, we get some benefits from all the new info, but you still got human beings got to still go out there and play it and execute. And the teams that do it better, they win.
You know, I agree with you. I go back many years ago to where Walter Olson, when I first started managing in the minor leagues, he had retired as the big league manager in Los Angeles, and he was kind of going through, and he told me one time, he said, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, no matter how much you think you can get, certain guys better, and maybe you'll get some guys better, but talent's going to win. Talent's always going to play. And I always thought that. So John, I don't, since I'm not in the locker rooms anymore, and I read I read papers and I listen. So one of the things I knew for a long time, John, managing, is that players got sick of meetings. They don't, it seemed like the more meetings you had, there were more problems. So, but I'm hearing today, there's like a hitters meeting every day. Is that true? Is that what goes on? And I mean, those guys got to get, for years ago, guys used to keep books on every pitcher. They knew what they were going to face. Are there that many meetings that are taking place before a game?
Yeah, it's a real quick one. They just go over there and they go over the pitch, that day's pitcher, maybe some tendencies or things like that. And then I think most of the work's done. The hitting coaches will go up to whoever it might be and say, hey, this is how he's probably going to approach you. But they kind of get together. I don't know if that's standard everywhere, but our guys get together for a little short, quick, meeting. And hey, I'm with you. It used to be. It's almost like when you have a child, right? So the more you talk, the less they listen, I thought, and, but that's big in the business nowadays. There's no question about it. And hey, when you mentioned Walter Alston in talent, TC, I got a quick funny story that this is analytics at its best, in my opinion, right? Remember big Frank Howard, Hondo? Everybody knows Frank, right? Frank, I was sitting in spring training when he was a coach for the Mets here back in, I was sitting there one day and he said, son, he said, you look in your dugout, you got 2 cannons. Then you look in the other dugout and they got 5 or 6 cannons. He said, you may win a battle, you ain't winning no war. And I said, that's it summed up right there. In 162 games, the team with the most talents usually come out on top. I think there's a couple teams that overachieve every year, a couple that underachieve, but you find your level at 162 games regardless.
I totally agree. I mean, I did a show the other day where they were talking about, the Mets are back in it. And I said, listen, this game, you say it every year, every team, and I'm sure you said it in Toronto in spring training. Hey, look, we're all going to win 50. We're all going to lose 50. It's those other 50 games where when we compete, we don't make mistakes. We got a better chance to win those. That's the determining factor. And you look it up now, here you are. You guys had a real tough May. And now all of a sudden you're right back in it. The Phillies are starting to struggle like crazy now. The Braves are starting to struggle like crazy now. So all of a sudden, it's not just a wild card you're looking at. You guys are in the hunt, man. You're 7 games out with a lot of games to play, and you get on one of those 15-5 streaks, and you may look up and you're 2 games out.
Yeah, AT, you're right. We're right in this thing. We got a good ball club. We really do. We April first homestand. We started off. It was a tough start, right? Obviously, and then but we withered the storm, and then May was brutal. That's why I got to give Carlos Mendoza a lot of credit. Especially for a first time doing it. I mean, we could have disappeared. I mean, we could have been irrelevant. I mean, there was talk around town anyway about selling at the trade deadline, right? That back then, because that's how bad things were going. But he stayed steady. He stayed positive. And, he won these guys over, and sooner or later things started to turn, because we had too much talent, to disappear that early and not be relevant, and so I gotta tip my hat to Carlos, because we could have very easily disappeared, but he just showed, what he's got inside of him, right? I mean, he could have panicked and lost it himself and said, you know what? And who knows what our record would be right now, but so he earned his stripes there, and he kind of showed he's got what it takes, But yeah, you're right. With 6 weeks left, month and a half, anything can happen, And so coming out of the All-Star break, we just been playing, 500 ball, I think probably. So we're due to get hot again because we were smoking going into it, And the games, it's a game of ups and downs, And it'll be an interesting ride this final month and a half.
Yeah, I really thought, I know it was a tough road trip, but I looked and I said, if they really, and I'm not trying to put down any team. I know with any team at any night, if we saw it yesterday with what the White Sox did at the Yankees yesterday. So at any time you can get beat by the team on the other side of the field because they're big leaguers too. But I mean, you got 2 teams coming out of this tough trip after a day off that, these are the teams you got to beat. you got to beat these teams, because when you get against those good teams, they're tough. They're tough. Those are tough games to win. So I hope you guys get off to this great start, and I hope tonight, you got a pitcher I'm not very familiar with, but you kind of like the matchup coming to. He's got to know the A's better than anybody on your team.
Yeah, exactly. And they also know him. That's you know what, TC, you're so right that there's certain teams you got to beat. You're not going to necessarily win all the games, but especially when you're playing at home. And I think I think we've been basically a 500 team at home. A few games over. That's where you got to make our hay. So this is two teams that you should beat, but then there's no guarantees. And then Baltimore comes in to finish it off. And then, we test it again because we go back out west. We go to San Diego for 4, then Arizona, the teams in front of us, and then finish in Chicago. So this month of August, testing us, and, we'll have a better idea where we stand at the end of that.
Yeah, John, I always loved it. This is, this time of year, everybody's starting to get a little tired and a little worn down. But when you're in a pennant race, man, that extra energy, you come to the ballpark every day and you can sense it. You can feel it in the clubhouse. There's energy flowing. You get beat. Hey, look, they're ready to come back tomorrow because they can, it's just a great atmosphere to be in. And I think it's great you're there because I know your background and I know your energy level. And, I'm sure it's really fun. And, there's a couple of guys you got to get going, but I really like where you're sitting right now.
Yeah, T, I agree with you. As long as you've been around the game, we've seen enough of how this plays out, and your big boys, usually rise to the occasion when it matters and here at the end. And like I said, we've always liked our team. I mean, we got a good ball club top to bottom. Now we just got to play it out.
Yeah, I did an interview with Carlos, and I was last week, and I felt bad for him, John. You guys made so many bullpen changes. I told him, I said, I'm really glad you guys got names on the back of your uniform so you know who the hell you got.
Oh, so. Yeah. I agree with you. I still don't know them all. He does, but I know. See, you were definitely speaking to me there. Hey, the game, the bullpen game is so important nowadays. We look at the, starters only go so far now. So you're using 3 or 4 a night. Even a good night and a bad night, so those guys get used up pretty hard, and so there's guys coming and going left and right, and usually that's probably going to determine what happens to to all the teams in the race right now when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I mean, bullpens now, they are the keys to clubs. I mean, these starting pitchers are so they're so set on pitch counts, and they're trying to make sure everybody stays healthy. And I'll tell you, years and years ago, I did a medical seminar with Dr. Job, and he said to me after we were all done talking about how to take care of pitchers, and he said, Terry, he said, in all my years in medicine, I'm going to tell you this: if they're going to break, they're going to break. I don't care what you try to do to protect them. So and so I just said, what, I've got to, that being said, I'm going to try to get them in shape, and then I'm just going to pitch them the way they're supposed to be pitched. So. Yeah,
that's true. The arm wasn't meant to be, throw 100 miles an hour, right? Sooner or later, it's got to get you. That's in the, and it's almost sometimes better now that it happens early, and they, these new surgeries that, have done a wonderful job, and these guys bounce back as good as ever. But yeah, if, I think we gotten to the point where we really try to overprotect guys, and it's inevitable anyway, right?
Right.
And so. What are you going to do? But that's kind of the nature of the beast right now.
Yeah. Well, I know John's got some great questions for you, Gibby, so I'm going to turn it over to him. Let him beat you up a little bit.
All right. Okay.
Well, I tell you, first thing I want to talk about is I heard you on a podcast yesterday, and I know how much you love traditional country music and Southern rock, and you said something that was pretty interesting, that you wake up every morning humming a song called OMG, John.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened to me, man. Hey, I tell you what, I gotta believe you might be doing it too. Being the huge Mets guys you guys are. I mean, but it's catchy. Julio Iglesias came up with a song. He's got a music group, but it's really done something to us, and now that I'm getting a little older, I figured I'd be too old for that kind of stuff. But it's been catchy. And I'll tell you, TC, there's another thing too. You know, we talk about talented teams, this and that. Iglesias showed up, right? And he was we were kind of sputtering at the time. I don't remember exactly when he showed up, but he like united us, you know. I mean, everybody loved him, and just something changed. And yeah, I'm not saying you can pinpoint it just to him being here, right? That's not it. But there's something he did to this team, and then of course you throw that song in there. Bottom line is, if he wasn't a productive player, it wouldn't matter anyway. He'd have been gone, right?
But you know, John, if you think about it, here's a guy who's got 14 years in the big leagues, 14. And so he joins the team, and I saw him last year in camp with the Marlins when I was helping Kim Eng, and you know, a very friendly guy, very outgoing. But here's a guy with 14 years who now has been re-energized because he's gotten a chance to get back to the big leagues, and now his respect for the game, it spreads in the clubhouse, saying, "Hey, don't take this for granted, guys," because you look up as it happened to him the last couple of years, it goes away. And so you bring a guy with that kind of a background in your clubhouse, he's got to make a difference.
Oh yeah, T, you're right on. It's been amazing. You know, he's united and he's played. Oh, yeah. We saw him in spring training. I mean, he played good, but you know, we didn't expect this. At least I didn't expect this. And I tell you what, I saw him, you know, for a few years back when he was in Detroit and things. I think he's a better player now. You know, and you know, his range isn't quite what it was, but his hands and the way he swings the bat. You know, I thought, damn, man, well, this guy's like a new guy. So he's been a huge addition for us. And, you know, in this day and age, I think some of that gets overlooked, but there's those glue guys that when they show up, man, things happen, things change.
That's right.
And John, you know, you're back in New York, right? It's been where you started. You were drafted in 1980. You know, were part of that 86 World Championship team.
Very small part.
Well, you were there. You were there, and also managed in the system with the Mets for many, many years. How was it like to be back in New York, to feel the energy of the city? And the second part of that question is, like, as a San Antonian, how is it like staying in New York for you? What a culture change. So kind of describe that for us, please.
Well, it's funny, you know. When I first got here, you know, I was 21 when I made the team in '84. You know, they were like a rebuilding team, and I had a good spring, and they were looking for guys, right? And so I come up here, and I remember we started on the ropes, but we opened up at home against the Expos, and I can remember the first day I was catching the home opener here at Shea. And it was Pete Rose was playing first for the Expos. He comes to the plate, and like he's standing in the box, and like somebody threw, I think it was a grapefruit or something, comes flying through. I'm going, where the heck am I, man? And you know, and even the hotel, when we first got to New York off the road trip, you know, it was like the hotel. I mean, it was noisy. There are people everywhere. There's cars up on blocks out in the parking lot. I'm going, I said, I saw the movie Escape from New York, man, when I was younger. I said, this is it. So I tell you what, now that I'm older and I got a better appreciation of things, I've enjoyed it so much more. You know, I live close to the ballpark, so I don't have to drive around this place, you know. But it's definitely a different world, and you know, nobody knows it better than TC as long as he was here. You know, you just got to ride the emotional roller coaster here with him, and you got to have a thick skin. That's why maybe that's part of the reason I said the bench job is a way to go, TC, because you know, when you manage it here now, Carlos is managing. You guys are taking the shots. You know, the bench coach, he just kind of sneaks in and out. Maybe that's part of it.
The game has changed probably in a lot of ways since you were in the dugout for the Blue Jays, leaving in 2018. What have you noticed most about the changes in baseball since you were last in the dugout?
Well, the iPads on the bench, probably. The game is so much more advanced technology-wise and things like that. And that's kind of, when I got back in, that was kind of you used to have, you know, guys could go up and look at in between innings, they could look at their bats on computers, you know, up in the clubhouse, right? And then they kind of banned that when, you know, they got a little suspicious of that. But now they're on the bench. bench, everybody's looking at iPads, and instead of watching the game half the time, I'm going, what the heck? I even catch myself glancing at them every now and then. So that's different. It's probably, baseball really is a simple game, when it gets down to it, right? But it's so advanced now. It just seems kind of odd at times that this game, it's not like football's, X's and O's are everything, right? Baseball, I still think the game's going to lay itself out for you, and how you want to react to it, whether it's you want to hit and run, bunt, things like that, which are very rare nowadays. It's there for you if you want, or a pitching change, what have you. It's not like you're not going to outsmart a lot of guys in this game. On TC, I mean, you're not, if you pay attention to the game, they say sometimes guys do too much on their gut instinct, and I don't buy that. I said, your eyes will tell you what's going on. The pitcher's losing it, this and that, all that. And I think that's still big in the game, although it's that's debatable in today's game. But it's just, but you have to be able to adjust with it. There's no doubt about it. I just think with the technology and me, I'm not very good with the computer anyway. So that's been a real battle, that to just get that thing up and running. But it's still the greatest game there is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, like we said earlier, the teams that do the basic things right and have more firepower usually are going to be all right in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mendoza, working with a first-year manager, you didn't really know Carlos at all before you got the gig. And talk to us about like your first interaction with him, and what impresses you most about Mendoza as a first-year manager.
Well, yeah, I didn't know Carlos at all. Like you said, I think my last year was in 18. That might have been his first year when he was the Yankees bench coach, and so I think I met him, right? But I didn't. I never interacted with him. But what happened is I got a call from DeMarlo Hill one day. DeMarlo was my bench coach in Toronto, one of the best guys in the business, and he called me and said, hey, I was talking to Mendoza. Can I give him your name? I said, yeah, sure. I'd love to. This was after that thought crossed my mind, a couple of weeks prior that, maybe they'll hire somebody with experience. Right. So he gave him my number, and then Kevin Cash down in Tampa, the same thing, called me and said, hey, can I give him your number to Mendy? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. And so we eventually talked and hit it off right away. You can usually tell when two people hit it off without knowing each other, and TC, the funniest part of all, we had a good conversation on the phone, right? And then we hung up, and I thought, you know what? I think a bench coach is supposed to organize spring training, right? And I had never done that. Even when I was a bench coach in Kansas City, I never did that, right? I was there for 3 years. So I said, first year manager, he's got a new bench coach, and the bench coach can't. What the number one thing he wants is a well-run spring training. So I called him back and I said, hey, Manny, I got to tell you, man, I've never organized a spring training. I don't know if that's a good thing for you. And he said, oh, don't worry about it now. There's coaches for that. And it turns out our guy that organizes it all used to pitch for me, Danny Barnes up at Toronto side. I said, perfect. So that's another thing off the list that I have to do, So it's a beautiful thing. Bench job.
Awesome. But it must be great working alongside him. A great, amazing season so far. You guys have bounced back, so it's going to be exciting. I want to take you back to the couple of your former teammates back then. Darryl Strawberry, Dwight Gooden. They had their numbers retired this year by the organization, which was a great thing. Both of those guys pretty well, John, going back to the 80s with them. What stories and memories do you have of Doc and Darryl that you like to share? And how great was it to see their numbers retired this year?
Yeah, well deserved. Two wonderful guys, that all the talent in the world, and they both went through some, tough times, right? A lot of it obviously self-inflicted, but, two good guys at heart, right? And they weathered the storm, and I think they got recognized here, for their accomplishments on the field, because they were two of the better players the Mets have ever had, and the chance to see him come out here was pretty cool. But Darryl and I got drafted the first year, like you said, in 1980, he was the number one pick. So he shows up to Kingsport, Tennessee. The first, actually, I signed in 3 days. He signed in took a month and a half, But get this, I think he signed for the number one pick in the nation. I think the bonus was 100, or was 230 grand or something like that. Right now it's like 10, 12 million or something. So, but anyway, he finally signs. It's like in the beginning of July. And, of course, he gets there as a big press conference and the media everywhere. And, his first game. And this little town of Kingsport, Tennessee, little redneck town, nobody's coming out. But when he showed up, and I think his first at bat, there must have been like 100 media people with, cameras and or print media. He got a base hit and drove in a run his first at bat. I remember that well. And we became good friends, of course. And he took, he was always a level above me, and then of course he got there quick and had a great career numbers wise. And you know what, he's turned it around, and it's he's persevered, and then the thing about Doc, Doc, the funny story, we were at our spring training, little motel around Tampa Bay there. We used to have the places we used to stay. You park your car right outside your room, right? So I was standing with about 4 or 5 guys one day. I remember, and this guy drives up in a souped up Camaro, right? And on the license plate said Dr. K. And we're going, who is this guy? Come on, man, get me with that, right? 2 days later, when I think I might have even been catching him in the bullpens in spring training, I said, "That's Dr. K." I don't blame him. He got that right. So, and of course, then he went on to do some great things here with this, with the organization. So, but like I said, both of them had their battles, and they're doing good now, and it's great to see, and they deserve that recognition.
Yeah, and you actually have a great story with Doc. I mean, it was during the World Series, and everyone could be used, especially in Game 6 and 7. And I think you were warming up Gooden in the bullpen, and then something kind of interesting happened with some of the horses that were in there in the bullpen.
Yeah, well, yeah. Remember when that big comeback, against the Red Sox, Game 6. Things started happening, so they called down and I want to say, I'm almost positive it was Doc. They said, get Doc up, right? But in the meantime, they had already brought the mounted police in there on their horses, into the bullpen, because they were going to go out in the field as soon as this game's over, because, everybody thought it was over, right? Everybody thought it was over. Yeah. And then, sure enough, I'm pretty sure it was Doc, but anytime, and I even checked with a couple of reporters here where they were trying to verify it, but I don't know why I would think different, but anyway, every time he threw a pitch to me warm up, because he threw so hard, with the crack of my glove, these horses would jump off the ground and look around and all that, like they was gunshots. They're used to that. And but anyway, we went on to win that thing, and that's one of my greatest memories. The funnest memories, anyways. Because I say that because my mother's had horses her whole life, so I was around horses all her life, and had nothing to do with winning the game. It's just I'm around these horses.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool. I mean, and who knows what's going to happen this year, as we had Carlos Mendoza on. It's like the media, the fans, they start panicking, like when the team leaves, like this road trip, everyone's like gloom and doom. But as we talked with Mendoza about, it's like you never know how good a season is going to be. And this team has really come back. They've re-energized. So no one should panic. Just get on the train, enjoy the ride, because no one knows what's going to happen next year, right? So enjoy this ride, and that media is crazy, and the fan base is maniacal sometimes, But
hey, nobody can tell you more than that in TC. But I never managed in this town, right? I experienced a brief playing career here, and so there's no place like. I mean, it's different here in Boston. It's just different. So the grind and these guys had to answer questions after every night. And that's where that's the toughest part of the job, I think, explaining everything you're having to deal with those guys, TC, for the game and then after the game. And that's, I think, probably what takes its toll on you. In a town like this, there's no comparison. And I think that's where Mendy's done a great job, Mendy's got this great smile. I tell him all the time, hey, just smile at him, man, and kill him with kindness, man. They'll love you. At least the first year anyway. Right?
Awesome.
Right, T?
I'm going to throw it back to Terry, John. Thanks, man.
So, Gibby, one of the things obviously that I faced, I've managed in different spots, and the big question is, what changes, have you made from the last job to this one? So, I would hope that you're probably hoping that there's a managing job here in the near future for you again. What changes would you try to make from when you managed in Toronto to your next job?
Well, I don't know what's ahead for me, to be honest with you, but I will tell you this. I've always viewed myself as being treat the guys like men. And I'll always, if I look back, I'd say, I think I was fair to everybody. I didn't, of course, some guys had more playing time and things like that, and you had your battles with certain guys. But I thought I was fair. I just think, you as you get older and you mature, and you look back on things, it's such a right and how you handle people, and sometimes you got to kick them. We live in a day and age, where everybody's, you gotta smooth everything over, and everybody's got a psychologist. But sometimes, a kick is the answer too, right? And but so you look at those things. Well, could I handle this situation better? Maybe I could have done. Those are probably the things, and the fact that we were talking about analytics a while ago. There is a lot of good new information out there that can help you. I think as far as, we were talking about the 3-batter minimum analytics is helpful in that area, matching up your, those 3 guys, with all the, but overall, strategy wise, you learn some things over time, but I think if you're fair to everybody, I think out on top, just like I just told you a minute ago, man, that bench job is a pretty good job. So, read between the lines.
And I'll tell you, John, and I knew you probably did too, but I'm telling you, when I first started managing, when I first got my first job in Houston, Matt Galante, who had been with the team for a long time, he was there, and I was talking to him about a bench coach, and he said, "You don't need a bench coach." He said, I know I've seen you manage. I managed against you in the minor leagues. You don't need a bench coach. Well, I will tell you, the game progressed to the point where bench coaches now, as you know, years ago when you were a bench coach, when I first started, the third base coaches were the guys who got the jobs. The opening job, they were the ones who were being interviewed. And now it's the bench coaches, because that job has evolved to such a point where, a lot of times, after the manager makes a decision and the player comes out and he's all upset about something, it's the bench coach who goes over and calms that guy down. It's the bench coach who's the first guy that, and so I think that job has really evolved, and I can see now why, that has become such a big job. And I also know in some teams, I did it with Bob Guerin, but he handled all of the data that we got, he put all of the scouting reports together. So I know that job has really evolved, and they got the right guy in New York. And I just want to wish you the best, and hopefully, you guys get hot again and get right back really in the main hunt of everything, because that's when it's so exciting. So, hey, John, I know you got to go here pretty soon, but John's also got some questions from some fans I know he wants to ask you.
All right, here we go. We're going to get to the questions right now, and I'll pull them up here now. First question comes from Mark from Toronto, and this is for both TC and for you, Gibby. Both of you are highly respected for your leadership abilities. Which individuals were some of the biggest influences on developing your leadership style, and what did they teach you? Gibby first, then TC.
Gosh, you know what? You look back over your career and, certain guys you play for that, you take something from everybody, right? There's guys you like, certain guys you don't like. They got good qualities, good traits, or you play better under them for some reason because of the way they handle you. And, I had some good, Chuck Killer was the first guy. He was my first manager after I got drafted. And then when I got into coaching, he was my roommate actually, because he was still an advisor in the Mets organization. And he kind of some rough edges about him, and he helped me out quite a bit, on some things. Daryl Johnson, DJ, managed the '75 Red Sox back then. And he used to come around when I was managing the minor leagues, and he talked to the coaches as well as the players, But they all touch you in a certain way. I said earlier about TC. I don't think I've ever been around I know I haven't a harder working guy than him, and a guy that cared more about the playing the game right. That rubs off on you. There's Davey Johnson, when he was managing New York, Davey was didn't say much, but he was a very confident guy. So I think everybody, and there's guys I play for that I could care less about, right? It doesn't mean they're bad guys, but you didn't like the way they did it, or maybe they didn't, they just weren't men's men type guys, So you take something from everybody, I think, discard some things, and then it really comes down to what my personality is. And TC's person, we all have our own personality, and you gotta live that, and you gotta use that, because otherwise you're a phony. They read right through you, and in the end, it comes back to how many cannons you got in the dugout. It always does.
John, you're absolutely right, and that is the truth. That is exactly the truth. You take something from everybody. I used to say, I'd listen to, I played for Del Crandall in Albuquerque, and Del was a great manager, tough guy, but because he demanded the game being played the right way. But you learn stuff from him. I learned stuff, when I first got obviously one of my main mentors, Jim Leland, and I watched him deal with players and stuff. But there were also times I also saw him, like you said, he could kick, I saw him. I was 2 feet away when he and Bonds got into it. I was, 3 feet away when he and Andy Van Slyke got into it. So, there were times that, hey, look, you got to take a stance. And so I saw how he handled players. I spent 30 minutes with Sparky Anderson one day talking about managing in the big leagues. You say, you know what, I'm going to remember that, and I'm going to use that. And then obviously, when I came back and got the job in New York after, not managing for a long time, the one thing I said is, I'm going to have some fun now. I'm going to enjoy the game now. I have, I'm an intense guy. I had to play harder than everybody else to succeed in the game. And so, you know what, I'm going to enjoy it myself. And I thought that translated to the players, just as you said. Walter Alston told me years ago, the players will take on the personality of the manager. Make no mistake about it. So, and I always thought, if I could get everybody to play as hard as I did, I got a chance to win. Because we're going to play the game hard, we're going to run balls out, and we're going to do the little things. So, but I think you're right, John. I think you just, you take the things you learn, you use them, but you are absolutely right. You cannot change who you are, because the players, they will read right through you. And so just be yourself again.
Exactly.
Excellent. I got a question from our Instagram account. This comes from John Woodward. John, in 1986, you were called up after Gary Carter got injured, so clearly you weren't going to get a lot of playing time. That being said, you hit 474 that year. Do you?
Holy man! What was that? He's in that team.
How could they ever play Carter again after
that?
That?
How did he get back in the lineup? He sounds like he got Wally Pipp to me. That's all I can tell you.
Exactly.
John asked, do you think your career would have continued had you been on a team where there wasn't a Hall of Fame catcher in front of you?
No. You know what? I had opportunities after in '88, the spring training, I got traded over to the Dodgers. DC was a manager, and I had playing opportunities, right? Our other catcher there, TC, played us every, we alternated. Gil Reyes, and Gil had the better year, right? And so, you know what, my thing, I got there quick, struggled, and lost my confidence, and then really, I forgot how to do it, right? And it's happened to many guys, and I'm always conscious of that now once I got into coaching, but no, I had plenty of opportunities. If I had produced, people say injuries here. Yeah, everybody goes through injuries, but I can't use that as an excuse, because that 474, that was just in a limited playing time. You look at my bubblegum card, it might say 174. So, hey, but you know what, though? That doesn't matter nowadays, batting average. I want to make a comeback. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, you had a 4-hit game, didn't you? Also, wasn't there like a 4-hit game in September after the clincher, and you hit a home run and got like a big night that night?
Yeah, well, I got caught up in the wave, man. That team was rolling.
We got just 2 more questions for you. This next one comes also from Instagram. Eric Soley asks, Gibby, what was it like to manage the Toronto Blue Jays, not once, but twice, and give us your most memorable moment as a Jay skipper?
Well, it's kind of unusual unless you win, It's like I'm Billy Martin coming back, but, Billy won, So the fact that I went back twice, Alex Anthopoulos took over the second time, and he was friend of mine. That's the way a lot of times it works. But I was pretty fortunate. to do that. The first go round didn't go real well, but we didn't have that many cannons either. I'm not making excuses, but that's back when the Yankees were the Yankees, the Red Sox were the Red Sox. But the fact that I got a chance to come back, is very unusual unless you've done something. But in a lot of ways too, I approached that second go round like TC was mentioning a minute ago, that he was going to enjoy it, when he got to New York. And I kind of took the same idea. I've done this before. I'm going to try to enjoy a little bit more, maybe, lighten up a little bit with certain things. But, the bottom line there is we acquired some better players. We had Josh Donaldson, Batista was there the second go around. And they were probably the two most despised guys in the league, but yet two of the better players in the league, right? And so we had some firepower in Encarnacion, Russell Martin. So we were much better, and my job was just to get the most out of them and get out of the way where I had to, right? But it had been such a long time since a team had won anything there, or even played games that mattered in September. And we heard that, I heard that year after year after year. And to finally be there, we won the division in 15, trade deadline pickups. So that's my fondest moment there, because, the whole country came alive, right? And they told me all along, they told everybody, said, if this team is relevant in September, watch what happens to the city and the country. But we were never relevant, so we didn't know. And then finally we were, and that's what happened. And we exploded, the country exploded. And too bad, if we'd won a couple more games, we might have played TC in that World Series, but we couldn't get there. So, but that's my fondest memory there. Finally being with the team there, that after all those years, they were starved. To be part of that.
Yeah, big season for you. Final question, also from Instagram, and this comes from Johnny A125, and I'll have to do a little bit of self-disclosure. That's me. So my question, Gibby, is, do you miss podcasting?
Yes and no. I miss sitting here BSing with you guys like that. I don't miss trying to track down guests to come on the show. That's what I know.
I'm sure TC could relate to that as well. It's not an easy gig for sure, tracking guys down. But it was we had really like a whole season and a quarter of another season. So each and every week it was great. The guests you got were great. Your insights were great, and it was very cool to be able to have that opportunity and that experience with you, John. But you were a good podcaster. People liked you, man.
Well, you got. Sometimes you throw some little BS around, even if it's not always in your nature. People buy anything nowadays. For crying out loud.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Hey,
go ahead.
TC and I might not even said a truthful word today, and people would never know that.
They wouldn't know the difference. That's right.
Oh, gosh.
Hey, listen, man. Thanks again for being on, John, and all the best. We're rooting for you. I'll see you this weekend. I'm coming up. I've got SNY shows this weekend, and I've got that Fanatics Fest at Javits Center. So I'll be watching close. So good luck.
All right. Well, come on down, man. Come on down to that clubhouse.
Okay, pal.
You're always welcome. All right, boys. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Gibby. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Great talking with TC segment with Gibby. That was a lot of fun.
He is a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun to be around. And I tell you, I've only met Carlos a couple of times, but he couldn't have done a better job in the selection of a bench coach than getting John Gibbons. First of all, successful manager, but a personable guy, knows players, respects them. They respect him. He brings that little piece of humor that you need when the times are tough and the stress is going on. John can lighten up any situation, and you need those kind of guys.
Yeah, he's king of the one-liners for sure. He knows how to diffuse any situation. And so it was great to have him on the segment today. Now it's time for the Tunnel to Towers Amazing Hero of the Week segment. This week we pay honor to U.S. Army Sergeant Brandon Adam. Let's go to that right now.
I got hit with an EFP. It's a copper plate, and that is an inch thick. That tore through the vehicle, tore through everything. I was just lucky. I had a phenomenal medic, phenomenal first response to my issues. You just gotta take it on the chin and keep moving forward, man.
For every wounded veteran, there's a family behind them too who wants life to be accessible and obtainable and as normal as possible. And so when the foundation provides homes for families, that happens.
The house is open ranch style floor plan. It's made for wheelchairs to not touch anything. All the cutouts for cabinetry, sinks, dishes, for countertops to move down for me to be able to cook better. Cabinets with pull-down racks in it where I can pull it down and get cups, plates easy. When I'm in my home, I'm not fighting the world right now because it's made for me. It's made for people with disabilities, for people in chairs. They went all out. They understand what it takes to actually have an accessible home. And then they do it for mortgage free, and it's just something that I can never repay. It's not lost on me what they've done. It's a generational gift. It's meant to change the trajectory of my family.
I think the home was actually like very much
Huge.
a healing
Huge.
for everybody involved. It's amazing that it's accessible for other wounded soldiers,
Yeah.
his teammates who are disabled. It's equitable and comfortable and accessible for anybody we invite in there.
This is a movement. If you sacrifice and if you put yourself at risk like that, TTT is coming in and figuring out how to ease your life a little bit. That's the kind of energy that's behind this thing, because we have to keep going for the next guy.
Hey, I'm Cole Hauser. I want you to join me in supporting our nation's heroes and their families. It's only $11 a month. Go to t2t.org.
We'll have another T2T Amazing Hero on next week's show. Terry, before we close the show, you're heading to New York this week along with the SNY Baseball Night New York crew, including Andy Martino, Sal Licata, Todd Zeal. You'll be appearing at Fanatics Fest on Saturday, August the 17th at the Javits Center in New York. So you have another busy weekend coming up.
I do. It'll be fun. We've got Baseball Night in New York a couple of nights, and then the Javits Center event, which is going to be really, really fun to do. The unbelievable people that are going to be there. I'm looking forward to saying hi to some of the guys I haven't seen in a while. So it should be very, very fun. I hope there's a big turnout for it.
Yeah, I think there will be. And also on our next show, I know how you and then how Gibby used to like booking guests, but you have lined up somebody pretty cool for next week.
Yeah, I have. I've become very, very close with one of the former Mets, and another guy who was a former Major League manager, Lee Mazzilli. Lee's one of my favorite people to talk baseball with. Not only was he a good player, but he got the game. He understood the game. Great storyteller, great energy still today. So I asked Lee if he'd be on the show, and he said he would do it. So we'll have Lee on next week as our guest.
And he's a new granddaddy as well. So I've been following him on Instagram, and he's singing Italian songs to his little grandbaby there. And I can't wait to for that show next week. So we will be back next week with another episode here. You can follow Terry on X and Instagram at TerryCollins_10. And for those of you on Facebook, you could follow the show there, The Terry Collins Show. Follow me on X and Instagram at John Arezzi. Make sure to subscribe now to The Terry Collins Show wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and on YouTube. Until next time, this is John Arezzi for Terry Collins. Have a great week, everyone.